Thank you again for joining us on Mission Matters this evening. We're so glad that you've come to join us, whether you're listening live or whether you're listening on catch-up. I'm sure you were blessed and encouraged by listening to Dorrie Gunning's story, her interview with Victor Maxwell. That interview actually took place 14 years ago and in Templemore Hall. And yet, as I listened to it just recently, the Lord really blessed my heart and encouraged me as I listened to Dorrie give accounts of what the Lord has done, and how God protected and how God blessed them there in Brazil. And of course, how God took them out of retirement and took them to the northeast of Brazil. Victor and Audrey and myself were in Brazil there just at the very beginning of 2020. And as we went to Campo Redondo, where James and Dorrie first went and lived and worked, from the very small beginnings of just a handful of people in the church, I wish James and Dorrie could have been with us just to see how God is blessed, with the church completely packed out to capacity and about 40 to 50 people sitting outside the church that evening. You know, out of small beginnings, how God worked. Folk like yourselves have prayed for the work for many years, and we appreciate your prayers. We appreciate your support for the work of ACRE and for the workers that are on the field. And again, for the many workers in Brazil today. I trust that you will be blessed and encouraged through the rest of the story of Dorrie Gunning this evening as you listen to her and Victor now share again the second part of her story.
So very appropriate to a meeting like this. Dorrie, the older missionaries here will remember in Brazil we used to talk of having a session. This is just like a session, and that's when the missionaries would sit and talk late into the night. Tom Geddes used to say, "Let's rip up the secretary." Don't worry, they're only joking about it. But this is just like one of those sessions talking over old times. And speaking of old times, in all of these years, we're looking back now 60 years, there have been a lot of memorable people that you've met in Brazil. I'm speaking of Brazilian Christians. For example, John Marinho, I already mentioned John Marinho. He was a great man.
Yes. John Marinho, we met him when we arrived in Santa Madeira, and he was a dear brother. He worked with James for nearly 40 years, and a great fellowship. There was never discord or anything. Real time of blessing with John Marinho. He was a wonderful, and we were right up with him right up to the end. Even when we were going to Campo Redondo, he was with us. And I'll never forget that day. When we were leaving, I said, "John, where are we going?" He said, "We're going to the northeast." I said, "Yes, but it's a long way." He said, "Yes, but we'll get there." And I said, "But we have no house. James and I have. Where are we going to live? He says, Dorrie, he says, "I have the keys of a house of a lady that's away on holiday, and she left me the keys, and she told me to put my friends there." So that's how John put us in that house, Donna Josephus.
Donna Sophia's house, right on the main street there.
Yes, on the main street. And it was like when James and I arrived, the crowded round the window. It was like a peep show. Wondered if they calling maybe a young couple. There we were arriving.
Dorrie, James and Dorrie had uprooted many times, and you weren't all that young when you went to Campo Redondo.
No, we weren't. And when John Marinho, when we were leaving in 1984, John said to James, "James, the Lord has told me to go back to my own people and give them the gospel." And he said, "I'm going, but James, he has told me that you're coming with me. You and Dorrie are coming with me." Well, James said to him, "Well, John, the Lord hasn't told us that yet. But if he does, we're willing and we're ready to go." And the Lord told us, and we went with John in 1985. I'll never forget it. As we left, I didn't know where we were, like Abraham, going out not knowing. Friends, it's all right to talk about it and read about it, but it's another thing when it's reality. And that's what it was to me that night and that day. And I said, oh dear, where are we going? And it was 2.5 hours, I think, from Natal to Campo Redondo. And I thought that we were never coming to an end. Where are we going? What? I said, John, where are we going? We have no house. I have the keys, he says. And we went into that house.
In our small island here of Ireland, it's hard for us to imagine. But if you can imagine a map of Brazil and look, as you look at it to the left extreme, that's where Cinema Dorrie is, to the west. And look to the right extreme, right at the point where Brazil goes out into the ocean, that's where Natal is. And the distance between them is about 3,500 miles. And James and Dorrie at that age uprooted from Senna to go all the way, and then from Natal another 2.5 hours interior. And every time we go there, we think, what a big step for you and James at that time. And yet, God bless Dorrie.
God bless. Well, it was wonderful. We stayed in that house, and as I said, it was like a peep show. Everybody came and everybody looked, and the doors and the windows all open, you see. And then they wanted to see this couple. Well, we were there and very happy. But while we were there, Donna Joseph, the lady of the heart, she came back and she said, James, you don't need to think about a house. You can stay here. You and Dorrie can stay here. And you don't need a house. But James, he said, no, we're better in our own wee corner. And then he went up the road a bit to get a house started for us.
Dorrie, already you mentioned someone else. I know you and James didn't have any children of your own, but the Lord has given you many, many children.
That's
But
right.
one of the most dear was Corina.
Yes, Corina. Corina was a lovely girl, and she was with Molly Harvey when we arrived in Senna. Molly had malaria, and she wasn't well, and Corina's father was an elder in the wee church, and he said, oh, my daughter Corina will come and help you to Molly, he said this. So Corina was there. Then Corina said, it's time for me to go back home now. And Molly said to her, oh Corina, I can't do without you because I'm expecting a couple. There's a couple coming out and I need your help. Oh, and she said, I'm going home. Well, Molly said to her, well, think about it, Corina. And then, well, she said, I'll tell you what, I'll think about it. And then I'll come. So she came. And then she said to Molly, if I like the couple, I'll stay. If I don't like them. Well, she stayed with us for 35 years.
Corina was Aunt Franco also. They were a great, great couple.
Yes.
All of the missionaries.
To all of them, she loved every one of them. And they all loved Corina. And we were very happy together. Corina was a great girl. She was so... James, one time we got young onions. We have no onions. Now, you hear that? When you go to the supermarket, you just think what you can throw into your baskets. We had no onions, but we got these lovely onions. And James said to Corina, Corina, give us some onions today. And Corina, when we looked, Corina had cut the wee onion in a quarter and just put the quarter of an onion in the thing. She was so careful, didn't want to put a whole onion into the pot. Dear me, when I think on it.
Dorrie, it broke all of her heart, the sad end that Corina had.
Yes, Corina had a sad end. We only knew through the ham radio that Corina was ill. And when James spoke then to her husband, that way, said, do you need some money? Do you need anything? No, he said, I just need prayer because Karina's very ill. And James then felt that he should go. And he got us her sister. Now, our sister could have afforded to go because, but she didn't want to go. But anyhow, with James pleading, she went with James. And they were there with him.
We should say that Corrine, at this time, Franco had gone on a river trip on the boat.
Yes.
And taken Corrine with him.
Yes. Her husband was the manager of it was like a floating supermarket. And he went to the thing. One day, this gentleman came to the house in Manos, and I answered the door, and he said to me, he said, I'm here to find out, he says, our manager, he said he would like his wife to go on the journey, and he said, I've come, I was told that she's here with you. I said, yes, that's right. Well, he said, I wanted to see just what it would be because we don't have this, we don't allow it that the manager takes his wife on board the ship. But he said, we want to see just what sort of a person she is. Well, I said, you have a real lady. Corina is a choice friend of all of the missionaries. And I can recommend Corina. And Corina went on the journey, but sadly, Corina took ill. And there, Corina was very ill. And she was away up there in the back beyond in Brazil. It was sad. And James went. And he didn't take me because they said you would need a speedboat in one part of the journey. And James then said that I couldn't go on the speedboat. Had we known there was a plane there, we could have been there. But anyhow, James was there. And there she was dying. And she would just sit and put her hand through James's hair. And James says, Corina, would you like me to read to you? Yeah, I want the 23rd Psalm. And James read her the 23rd Psalm. And when he just finished, she just put up her hand and she was gone. And then James had to go, no undertakers. You can't go and buy a coffin. No, it had to be made. Then he had to go to the wee shop and get so many yards of blue cloth so they could get it covered. And so the coffin was made and they had the funeral. And James spoke on the 23rd Psalm that day. And the priest was there. And the priest said, wonderful. He said, I have really enjoyed this today. And she was buried. And friends, we have a picture of that cemetery. It's dreadful. And she's away, buried there, but she's not there, for she's in the glory, for she trusted the Lord as her Savior with us. And that was a wonderful thing. Corina, you know, friends, Corina thought because her father and mother were Christians, she was wrong. And so we had to explain to her that it's a personal thing between you and the Lord. And Corina trusted the Lord as her Savior with us, the missionaries out there.
Dorrie, changing a wee bit, Christmas in Brazil was a very busy time in all the parties. Maybe you'll tell them about the day you went down to Inamni and you were fed up with them cake and you'd like something different.
We gave parties. We always gave. We just had a small. At the beginning, we didn't have a real oven. We just had a square kerosene oven, and the 12 tins, the happy tins. James cut 3 off. That 9 went into the wee oven. So we did 9 each time. So we did the children, we did the boys, then we did the girls, and then we did the adults. and we had that. So we had all these parties, and then we were going down the river to the outreach. And you had to take it with you in the canoe. Joanne Marini was with us, and 9 of the girls, they came with us. And we had to carry the buns, and then there was no icing that you could ice cakes. You made frosting. They always called it the American frosting. And you made the frosting, and I had to take it in a bowl. So then we put it over the cakes when we got there, and we had the party. And when we were going down the river, there were many people, many men out fishing, and they were out fishing for something for their evening meal. And I said to the girls, I said, "Oh, look at that, isn't that wonderful?" I said, "Well, that's what I love, fish. And I would just love fish and have that for my tea." I just had the words out when a big fish jumped in. We talked about the Lord for the fish. To us it's warm. We can fly tonight, but they're right in the canoe and it wriggled and wiggled. And John Marine got the paddle and bit it in the head. And that night the girls treated the fish, and I had fish for my tea. For I was tired, because Jim said, "We'll not make any rice and beans, because we'll just have the cakes. Well, I'll eat the wee burned ones," he said. And I was eating the wee burned ones, the ones that were at the edge of the oven. And we had that, and we were so tired. I was so tired, I wanted something nice. But I tell you, I got the fish last night, and I had fish for my tea. Oh, the Lord is so wonderful, friend. That was a real blessing to me that night, just to think there the Lord just sent that fish.
Dorrie, I always thought it was a good thing you didn't ask for a steak. Dorrie, over the years, there are so many people, but the Lord has given us all in the ACRE Gospel Mission many wonderful colleagues. And I mean, we always say it's been like family over the years, but we're looking back, Mr. and Mrs. McComb. Molly Harvey was a great person.
When I think of colleagues, friend, I must say this just now, lest I forget. Since James went home, my colleagues have been my family. And I thank God for every one of them tonight. Every one of them, my colleagues, who were with us out in Brazil, and they're with me today, and they're with me at every turn. And I just cannot praise them enough. And I thank the Lord for them. But you know, remembrance, we think of Mr. and Mrs. McComb. As I mentioned earlier, I never forgot it. It was something that was really impressed upon my heart. Those early years, Mr. and Mrs. McComb, leaving for Brazil, leaving ACRE. And then today I thank the Lord that we have Eleanor and her husband William and her family, and I keep in my friend Beverly, their daughter, I keep in touch with her, and it's a real privilege. I thank the Lord for every remembrance of Mr. and Mrs. McComb. Molly Harvey, you know, we met Molly, and Molly met us, and we were with Molly in Brazil, and for many years, and we worked together, and we thank God for Molly.
And what about our Hazel?
And Hazel, oh. Hazel was she and her family were very deeply interested in the ACRE mission, and for many years they supported Hazel's mum and dad. They supported the mission. Hazel was coming out, and Hazel came with James and me. Yes, she journeyed with us. We brought her out, and Hazel had a lovely wee transistor, And what do you think? The next thing I saw, James had the transistor under his arm, and he carried it everywhere he went on the boat. When we were on the boat going out, and everybody would say to James, "Oh, that's a lovely transistor you have." "Oh," I said, "it's not James's, it's Hazel's." And then we had it, and Hazel was with us. So we had, and Hazel laughed a lot then. And when we were traveling on the shuttle, they just came round and said, "Just love to hear her laugh." And then they laughed too.
Dorrie, time for business to talk of Fred and Alan and Billy.
Alan came, I have to tell Alan, he said he'd likely hang his head now. But Alan came, and I said, "Alan, you know, I'm very chatty." I said to him, "But you'll get used to me." And you know what he said? "Do you think I will?" All right, he stayed over 4 years. And we had good fellowship. And Alice was good. Yes. Until today. Yes.
And what more can we say of Bill and Fred?
Bill and Fred. Fred. Oh yes, Fred was with us, and Fred. We were there when we travelled home on the boat. Fred and Ina went out, and then when we just were home, we got the news that Ina had died. It was sad. And then Fred was with us, and he lived with us and worked with us. You know, I was well accustomed to men because I had Alan and I had Fred. And then we had Bill, Dr. Bill, and he was down in Canatama, and we were nearer, and he would come up to see us, and then James would go down to see him. And every time Bill would come up, I would say, "Bill, you know what, you'll excuse the expression." I would say, "Bill, you're all neck." He was just all neck. He was so thin. And I said, "Bill, dear, you need to get fattened up." Thank God for Bill too. And Fred's still out. And Fred's vision is almost accomplished what he has done. What he talked about many years ago, and there today it's all been accomplished.
There's so much you could say, but I want us to wind up with what I think is an amazing story. The day we were all to go to the conference, but you and James were stuck in Boca do ACRE and couldn't get out. Maybe you tell me. Sorry, in Santa
We were stuck the rainy season, and it poured, and then the government wouldn't allow the Brazilian Air Force plane to land. So we had to wait. And I remember James had on a lovely new white shirt, and I had a strawberry dress. Well, we were all dressed to leave. We never got out. We were over 10 days waiting, and our colleagues were all really down at Manas waiting for us. And the plane came, and then all the students that were there doing work for the government, they got on, and then we weren't down. And I said, "James, you go and speak. Tell them I have to get there." James was field leader, I was the field secretary, and I said, "You have to get there." He said, "Dorrie, if we're not to go, we're not to go." That was James. But anyhow, just then they called, "Senior James, come," and we got on the plane.
Well, the plane, it's generally only a half-an-hour flight from Santa Margarita to Rio Branco.
Yes.
But as James used to tell, as they got on with all of the students, they were singing and dancing.
Yeah, that's right. And I was up here James was away around somewhere there, and there was an old man sitting beside me, and I said to him, "Sir, wonder would you change places? Would you let my husband come down?" Oh, he said, "I would not. I was never in a plane in my life, and I'm not going up again." And he didn't. So we had to remain like that. But then it was a terrible journey. Was that the one?
Yeah, the plane got. Well, it's only a half an hour, but when we were 15 minutes into the flight, James noticed that instead of the jungle clearing as he got near Rio Branco, the jungle got more dense.
That's right.
And
And there we were. And I was sitting. And then it began, you see, it gets dark at 6 o'clock. And there we were in the air. And the mayor of the town was in front of me, and the vice governor was in front of me, and the priest was in front of me, and he got out of the rosary, and then everybody got quiet. Everybody realized that we were lost over the jungle, and there it was soaring in the dark. I'll never forget it. It lives with me yet. And we were there, and I got so tense, and darkness was came down, and then we could hardly see anyone in the plane. And then I thought, oh dear. Then I got violently sick, very sick, and I was vomiting, and I was so sick. And then James came up the plane to me. I said, "James," he said, "Dorrie, I was frightened, and I had given up all hope of us ever getting home. And I thought, we'll have this news to come home to our people. But you know," he said, "the Lord gave me a promise when we sold out to go to Brazil, and we were leaving all for the Master's sake. The Lord gave me a promise. Even to your old age I am He. Even to hoar hairs will I carry you. I will bear. I also will deliver you." Isaiah 46 verse 4. And friends, James said, I claimed it, and now the Lord's going to see us through. And you know, friends, the Lord delivered us. We got down. I'll never forget. They wondered how we would get arriving in Senna, but then the next thing, the plane, who was it, said, oh, the captain of the plane come out and said, "We're all right, another plane has met us." We were way up in Bolivia. We're so far out of course. And they came, and I never forget. He said, "We're landing now, and it could be a bad landing, but the Lord." But friends, during that time, I said, "James, get out the daily life."
Yes, sir. Maybe I could fill one or two things in. The plane took off at 4:30, and all flights should be on the ground in ACRE by 5 o'clock because there are no landing lights. In those days, it was only a concrete pad with no lights on. But as they flew 4:30, they should have been landing for 5 o'clock. It was dark at 6, so at 6 o'clock in the darkness, they were still flying. And from Rio Branco, they sent out Air Force planes to do ever-widening circles looking for the lost plane. And they found it just before 7 o'clock over the borders of Bolivia. And the plane flew on top of the other one and guided it back to Rio Branco. But they had no landing lights. So they got the cars of the town to come out and park their cars down the side of the runway with their headlights on. And one plane landed, and then the lost plane, came in and landed. And I think that's when a lot of people were badly sick also.
They were sick.
And the pilot said that only 20 minutes fuel left on the plane.
20 minutes, and that's how the Lord protected us. 20 minutes, no more, sure.
So, Dorrie, this was 1969, and you say the Lord told you, take the daily light out, it's night time.
Oh yes, that's what I said to James. James, take out the daily light and see what the Lord has to say to us.
Dorrie, maybe you should also tell them, you said to James, James, if we're lost, think of the state I left that house in. Remember you said to James, if we're lost over the forest, look at the state I left that house in. The wee dog.
That's right. We were moving from one house to another, and it was really slanderous. And I said, oh, that's terrible. If the Lord takes us home, what will the people say of the house I kept?
So, Dorrie, it was the 13th of January for the daily light. And as I recall, you read the evening piece first.
That's right. I read the evening, and it said, let not the sun go down upon your wrath. I said, out in the plane, I said in English, I said, oh, but Lord, that's not for me now. But the morning and the evening are like, look at the morning. And this was the morning.
The morning of daily light, the 13th of January reads, Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. Cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. He shall not suffer the righteous to be moved. I will trust and not be afraid, for the Lord Jehovah is my strength and my song. He also is my salvation. It goes on to use that lovely verse that Sylvia was reminding us of, casting all your care upon him, for he cares for you. And so the Lord delivered. Dorrie, if we could just say there have been many, many wonderful memories. You and James have been like parents to all of us, and more than parents, role models. Models because of your love for the Saviour, your faith in him, your dedication and courage to serve him. And we all know that you miss James tonight. We all miss him. But we do thank God for James and Dorrie coming. And maybe we could all just give a good round of applause.
Well, what an account of lives lived for God. James and Dorrie are certainly a challenge to us still today. They've gone home to be with Christ. They've heard the well done, good and faithful servant. But yet, for us who are left behind, what a challenge to us that we will continue to serve the Lord and continue to give ourselves unreservedly, wholeheartedly to the work of God, to the service of God today. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your support and your continued prayers and support for the work of ACRE Gospel Mission, ACRE International. Can I just say to you today, if you'd like to get our magazine on a regular basis, please get in contact with us. We would love to send this to you, whether you email the ACRE office, whether you give us a phone call and ask us, or whether you write to us and ask us to put us on the mailing list. Well, if you'd like to get that, please get in contact with us. It keeps you up to date of what God is doing in the work of the mission. Also, we do have our ACRE Kids magazine. If you've got children or grandchildren, or you know of children maybe in your church that could get our ACRE Kids magazine, it helps them to know about mission. This is the story of Dr. Bill Woods. It's actually part 4, this one that we have out at the minute. But we have all the other different parts, part 1 through to part 4. And again in it, there's the account of Dr. Bill Wood's story. Inside you'll find that there are articles about Brazil. And then if you go to the back of it, you'll find maybe a little recipe, or you'll find a craft for the children to do. Well, you get in touch with us if you're a Sunday school teacher, or you know someone that is, and we'd be very glad to send out either of these magazines, or both of these magazines to you as well. Thank you for listening. Do remember Mission Matters again next month, the 3rd Monday of the month, and come and join us if you can for that. We'd really love you to be there. God bless you.